This is a video I wanted to make for a really long time, so apologies if I ramble, but there's a lot to say and I'm going to try and get through it as concisely as I can. Now, QAWWALI means a lot of different things for a lot of different people. Obviously everyone has their own way of interpreting it and explaining it and what it means to them and how it's affected them. I'm just going to give you my story and what I believe QAWWALI is at its essence, mixed in with Sufi poetry, because I am a practicing Muslim Sufi. There's all sorts of mystical elements and all sorts of this kind of and that kind of stuff about unification with an ideal, a beloved, a divine, all that kind of stuff in the poetry, and then that's expressed in the form of music known as QAWWALI. Now, one thing I can say for sure about why I love QAWWALI and Sufi poetry is that it's very humble. It's about reducing oneself and thinking of oneself as nothing in the face of the beloved, whether that be a person or a guide or a teacher or an ideal or an idea or like what people believe to be the perfect being. People see it as the ideal being maybe their spiritual guide, which is a very prominent thing in Sufism, somebody who teaches you the way, or they could be your parents, or it could be the perfect ideal according to Muslims, that's the Prophet ﷺ, or at the highest point it could be in front of the divine, in front of God. And a lot of Sufism is about trying to form a link and trying to unify oneself with this ideal, with the beloved, with the Prophet, with God. And the way that Sufi poets go about this is different depending on the Sufi poet, but a common theme, a very common theme, is humility, is being humble in the face of greatness. And that's something that really draws me, because arrogance is something that I've always hated in my life. It's something that I've consciously tried to avoid throughout my life. Out of all bad things, arrogance is something that I despise. We see a lot of this in Rumi's poetry, in Amir Khusro's poetry, in Maulana Jami's poetry, and all these big names in Sufi poetry. And the way that it's been expressed, these poets have been, their ideas and their poems have been expressed in the Indian subcontinent is through the medium of QAWWALI, which is a unification of like the poetry along with the music, along with the rhythm, all that kind of stuff comes together to bring you the full package that is QAWWALI. And the humility is why I genuinely am drawn to a lot of QAWWALIs. I mean, there's such a wide genre that I can't generalize about it. Like in QAWWALI, I've had QAWWALIs that have made me cry, I've had QAWWALIs that have made me think deeply about life, that have calmed me down. I've had QAWWALIs that have got me really excited and like singing along at the top of my voice, even though my voice is rubbish. And it's a mixture of the poetry, the words and the rhythm and the tune and the atmosphere. If it's a live recording or if it's a studio recording, all that kind of stuff makes a difference. And it's something that I've spent many years of my life looking into and listening and enjoying. I'm gonna give you a little story of how it began and where I am now and how it's progressed over that time. Ever since I was a young child, like before I can remember, there's always been some sort of Sufi music or poetry being played in my house, in the car, whatever, but I never really paid attention to it until I was about 11 or 12 years old when I went to boarding school. One of my uncles, he was in the car with me and we were listening to some QAWWALI. I was sitting mindlessly as I always did, and he told me just to listen to it and pay a bit of attention, try and understand what he's saying and what the message was. And at that point, when I actually tried to listen and understand, my Urdu wasn't that good, it was an Urdu QAWWALI, but I understood the words and I understood what was going on. From that point, when I was about 12 years old, about 8 years ago, I was like, yo, this is actually really good. I'm starting to enjoy this. I'm understanding what they're saying. I'm understanding everything, and the tune just makes it even better. The rhythm, the clapping, the instruments, everything just makes it so much better. And from that point, I started to pay attention to the words of the QAWWALI that I was listening to and really try to understand what they're saying, why they're saying it, and enjoy it as much as I could. And for at least 4 or 5 years, I was on YouTube every day looking for a new QAWWALI, this QAWWAL and that QAWWAL. It started off obviously one of the best QAWWALs in history, the biggest name in QAWWALI, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. And then I slowly started to discover different QAWWALs, like the Sabri brothers, like Farid Ayaz, like Munshi Raziuddin, like Nusrat's own father and his uncle Mubarak Ali and Fateh Ali. And it really diversified from there. I find it really interesting because it helped me with my language, my Urdu, my Punjabi, even a bit of Persian, a bit of Farsi here and there. But at the start it was, as I said, mainly just about the words and about what they were saying. And then slowly over time I started to develop an appreciation for Qawwali by itself, without the words, without the poetry, as an art form. And that's something that's happened very recently, whereby before, it was, when I was younger, it was all about, it had to be like fast paced and everything, with the words, with everything, with the clapping, to get me really going, exciting music, all about the adrenaline, because before then I was listening to like all sorts of rap music and grime and all that kind of stuff, so I needed something to get me really pumped up. But over the past few years it's been more about Qawwali as an art form, and that's something I've really enjoyed, understanding rags and tals and all these other crazy words and what they mean and why they do this and why there's all this stuff that didn't make sense to me before. What is it? Why do they do it? And appreciating all of that, I think, has really opened my eyes towards Qawwali. And nowadays my favorite Qawwalis are really slow paced, they're taking their time, they're usually older live recordings, because nowadays a lot of Qawwali is about performing and making money, whereas a few, like, I don't know, 10-15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, before that time, Qawwali was about showing it as an art form and about everyone appreciating the art rather than just paying some money and, you know, making money in a short period of time, playing as much as you can, and that's it, it's gone. So older recordings, live recordings, where the Qawwal really takes their time, they express all the different styles of Qawwali and the old Persian words and the old poems that people don't really know of nowadays because they aren't that popularized. Like some of Amir Khusro's Persian poetry is just unbelievable. Maulana Rumi, who's Jalaluddin Rumi, who is very famous now in the Western world for his poetry, some of his poetry is absolutely exquisite. And you get people like Mubarak Ali Khan, Fateh Ali Khan, you get people like Rashid Ahmad Faridi and Munshi Raziuddin, all these people, all these old classical Qawwal, that would really express themselves and really, you know, bring out the art in the Qawwali rather than just repeating the words. It's changed for me from just being about the words of the Qawwali to being about the whole package. The words are part of it, but then there's the rag and the tal and all this kind of stuff that I find very interesting, that draws me towards new Qawwalis. So that's my rambling done, that's my explanation of why I enjoy it. I'll leave a couple of links in the description to loads of different types, like the ones I would listen to when I first started when I was younger, to the ones that I'm enjoying more now, the slower classical ones. My goal with this video series is to try and bring to light some of my favorite poems in Qawwali, some of my favorite Qawwalis, provide links to them obviously, and explain what my translation of them would be, what they mean, what the connotations are behind it, what they're trying to say and how they're saying it. And obviously there's going to be a lot of mistakes because these are my translations, my language isn't perfect, so I do welcome all the feedback that's going to be in the comments. And if you have any feedback about the video series in general, do leave them as a comment on this. I'm open to all suggestions, but hopefully I've explained myself well enough. I know I've rambled, I've said a lot of things, but obviously if anyone has any questions, do let me know. I'm always open to respond. And that's about it. Let's get this started. I'm gonna probably record the first one right now.